Can't you not though?
I had that nicely placed for our shot, and you opened it. Yeah, let's put this back.
Wait, oh, you want the name? You just want the art? Beer. I'm drinking this.
Welcome back, Beerlievers, the Don't Stop Beerlieving podcast. I'm Chris. That is Michael. Thanks for joining us today on episode 8 of the podcast.
Can you believe it?
No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Oh, man.
It's good to have everyone here. Michael, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for today. I actually wrote this one on this episode on the fly because I had something else planned, but then I actually had we had the awesome opportunity to meet Andrew Rea of the YouTube series Binging with Babish.
We did.
And so he actually inspired this episode and the next one. So I'm actually really excited to write that one too. But if you guys don't know the channel, Binging with Babish, it's about exploring the recipes and dishes of videos, of movie shows, TV shows, and either recreating them, point by point or improving upon them, especially if they're like really weird or really bad. And he's a fantastic guy, down to earth guy from Rochester, New York. And I don't know, what were your thoughts on him?
I mean, he's a phenomenal guy. If you haven't seen his channel, like Michael said, go check it out and give him a subscription because it's one of our favorite cooking channels on YouTube and has really just blown up in popularity in the last like 3 or 4 years. But he was so nice. I mean, there were lines like crazy.
He probably met a couple thousand people that night.
Oh yeah, it was insane.
For his second cookbook now.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, he did.
We got a copy of that. Got it signed. Got to chat with him for a few minutes and pick his brain about what he's been doing on YouTube, and it's pretty cool to see. But, yeah. So hopefully we can talk a bit today about how cooking and beer kind of mesh together and the similarities between, I guess, the two art forms of cooking and then brewing, but then also more specifically, how can one cook with beer? What are the best ways you can incorporate beer into the cooking process? And as people that both love to cook ourselves, I think this was a cool topic for us to kind of bring up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think first, as we always do, we're going to talk about last week's challenge, which we hope you went out and completed. Did you find a Valentine's beer? Michael, did you find a Valentine's beer?
I actually found a few.
A few?
Yes. So I stopped by a spot in Baltimore City. For those of you who don't know me, I despise going into cities in general. I'm just not a city person. I don't understand why there's so many people. So driving into the city is just daunting for me. But I actually needed to go there because they had a 2 beer release. Actually, I think they had 4 beers releasing that day. And also I needed something for my Super Bowl party. So I went over to Oliver Brewing Company in Baltimore City. And it was my first time. Really cool spot over there. It's just this giant warehouse. Pretty cool system over there. And they have an R&D system, just like it looks like, I want to say like a 15, no, probably more than that. Probably like a double mine. So like a 30-gallon test batch system over there. No, it was definitely just a 1-barrel test system, and it was so cool to like see that system over there. I hopefully one day I can invest enough money to get one of those. That's a lot of fun. But their beers were all about like having some kind of Valentine's Day love theme. And what does that mean? And I want to know your thoughts about that. When I asked you guys last week, get a Valentine's Day beer, does that just mean, okay, get something with, cherries or strawberries, or get something that's red, or get something that's really deep and dark, like chocolate, and really it's up to you.
Oh, I didn't think about that before. I was thinking all the red and kind of like the, the love and sensual kind of like characteristics.
The intimate things.
The intimate things about beer. No, but I didn't think about chocolate. There's probably a lot, chocolate milk stout or something like that. Could probably be a Valentine's Day beer. Yeah.
So actually Manor Hill, where I work, developed a couple Valentine's Day beers, one of them being what's called two spoons, please, which is an imperial stout, fantastic beer. I just had it for my first time yesterday when I was on shift. So
there you go. On
shift. Or Saturday on shift. You have to make sure you know what you're selling. Right?
I guess that's fine. We'll talk about what you have here. What did you actually bring back?
So this is what's it called? Fruits of Our Labor, the Cherry Blossom. It's a cherry wheat ale. It to me has like a nice little mildly puckering sourness to it, and that's not actually a sour beer. It's just because I don't know to you, but cherry to me is always going to be a little bit like the acidity and like that bite of cherry is always going to be like puckering to me.
Okay. Yeah, there's certainly an aspect of that to a cherry.
That comes there, but then it's immediately just like flattened by, I want to say like a vanilla, just like coating of the mouth. So that's like kind of protecting you against that astringency. But no, it's a fantastic beer. The color's beautiful. I mean, look at that.
That is so nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely just a crushable beer. If you're really into wheat ales, I think you'd like this one. But definitely just head out there in general because it's got a pretty extensive tap list, and the beer tenders there are pretty knowledgeable too. So I actually ended up with, I think, 4 other beers there. I got over a case of beer for the party. So I totally did something wrong here. I was geeking out over the beer so much, and I forgot that I was bringing it back for the Super Bowl party.
Yeah.
That I was bringing back beer that you don't want to drink during a Super Bowl. Like I brought back a barley wine, which was like sitting at like 11%.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just, imagine like,
first quarter.
Exactly. So that one was the last one to be drank.
Yeah.
Obviously. But I brought back some other things. They also had, they have a more recurring beer called Tell Your Citra Cashmere Outside. Cashmere hops. They use cashmere hops. I know. They use cashmere and Citra hops. It's an awful name. But they did a fun play on that one for Valentine's Day. I forget what they changed up about it. But that one went quickly.
Nice.
The IPs there are very fresh, very nice. So, definitely check out Oliver Brewing Company because they got some good stuff. But let us know in the comments below what you guys got. If you guys went like Chris, maybe you just went for something that has strawberries, cherries, or that red color.
Yeah.
Or if you went for the deeper sensual thing, apparently. So I'm
Poor
the
word choice. I'm
one,
getting
and you're the sensual.
Criticized over here for I'm trying to build up my beer descriptors here.
I don't know if sensual.
Give me a chance. Give me a chance.
You know what? Yeah, I'm not even gonna knock on yours because mine don't make sense most of the time either.
Mouthfeel. No. Well, okay. Before we get into the topic of today's episode, or the main topic of today's episode, you mentioned Super Bowl party, right? We talked about this a few weeks ago about the ad campaign that ran a few years back.
Yeah.
Kind of with the Bud Light Night and the kind of back and forth advertising campaigns with Miller Coors and Anheuser Busch. So if you watched the Super Bowl, you noticed there wasn't a ton of beer commercials this year.
Right, during the actual game. I think I did see the Bud Night like once or twice, but it was like during a Tide commercial or something. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it just felt different. It didn't feel like there was as much of a push this year. But there was one ad that Anheuser-Busch put out that I wanted to bring up.
Right.
Which actually was aired before the Super Bowl. I think it was like during probably the pregame or something like that, or right before the actual kickoff. But it was interesting because it was big beer. And to give you an overview of the episode, it essentially was Anheuser-Busch trying to get you to think that their beer was not typical. It basically showed a bunch of Americans doing very like heartwarming things with like average descriptors. So the narration behind it was kind of like, oh, look at that, American, like basically being so competitive. And it was like an athlete, who had just like, completed some run, or I forget exactly what it was, but it was amazing to me that they went with that angle because it's very different from what they've been doing in the past.
Oh, very different.
They basically went, and I think it's a craft beer, not attack, but strategy, because they're trying to say, yeah, we're big beer and we're like rooted in the American culture as far as, what people drink here, but like, we're not typical. I think it's a bold statement to say that their beer is not typical, because I think it's exactly what everybody would think of their beer if you just asked them on the street. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, I like your interpretation of the commercial. I think I see it slightly differently.
Okay.
So I see it as them trying to reconnect themselves to the working middle class, and also the just to established themselves as being the American beer.
Okay,
Like this is the beer that Americans drink.
Always been,
That's why if you listen to the commercial, they use the word typical, but they also just say the word American over and over in your head. You're like, yeah, this is the American beer. But I think so. The reason I'm saying that they're trying to pander towards the working everyday middle class person, I think is because or working class person is because you're trying to say like this is like the everyday typical American beer. But yet it's also just like it's somehow not. You can say something special about it, like you were saying.
Totally.
But very, very interesting commercial. Again, like you said, not an angle that we've seen with them for a long time. They've always I've always thought of them as having some kind of backbone of being the American beer. But the last couple of years, they've been focusing more on just kind of shoving out other bigger beer competitors like Coors and stuff like that with the Bud Light campaign. This is a different angle.
It seemed to go back to like focusing on them, as opposed to like the competitor, which is more traditional beer advertising strategy.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that was pretty interesting to us. Let us know what you thought if you saw those commercials. We'll link to the one that we talked about in the description below, so you can check it out. It's a nice commercial. I mean, it was a good commercial, I thought. It just kind of was a different angle, and I don't know, might signal some future changes in how they're kind of marketing the product.
And I'd love to see like the what people were drinking this year too, in terms of what they were drinking at their Super Bowl party, or if they went out to the bar to watch the game. What the beer or drink in general of choice.
Did you drink beer?
Yeah. Did you drink beer in the Super Bowl?
Seltzer, perhaps.
That I bet there was a spike in that, which is it was good for some beer places like Bud Light to come out with their seltzers before the Super Bowl, because I bet a bunch of people did. That's
actually a good thought. I didn't think about that. That might have been part of the strategy. Like make sure we get these out before the Super Bowl because people are going to be drinking them.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's get into our topic of today, cooking with beer.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was inspired by Andrew Rea on Binging with Babish, but he usually inspires me to make some fun little dishes at home. And for Valentine's Day, I actually hosted my roommates and their girlfriends or fiancés and created a 3-course menu. One of which the courses was ossobuco.
Oh, okay, interesting. You made his ossobuco.
I made his ossobuco. So what's really funny is that ossobuco is the reason he created that was because he was inspired by the dinner party episode from The Office,
right? Which
was horrible.
Yeah,
it was probably the most
cringeworthy
episode on the show.
And Scott's Tots.
I mean, but that's on a different level. No, but so I developed this menu, and my friends are all like messaging me like, "Oh, this is just because of the dinner party, so this is gonna be like really awful." Like the night was, first of all, the night was fantastic. It was a great time. Great. The first course was, well, we'll get through the whole menu, but let me just talk a little bit about the ossobuco. If you've never had it before, it's veal shank.
Oh, wow.
That's braised. So that means it's first cooked on a skillet to get that nice char on the outside, and then we're going to put it in this kind of like sauce, which is onion, celery, carrots, and reduced in, what I use was white wine, a dry white wine, and then it sits in a Dutch oven for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it just pulls off the bone.
Yeah, it gets real tender.
It gets real tender, and because it's a veal shank on the bone, you have that marrow right there in the middle. That's like your mini dessert right after your dinner. But the entire menu, if you guys are interested in it, I'll let you guys know about it below, because it was fantastic. I do say so myself.
Yeah, you can all go try it yourself.
Mike's
Valentine's Day meal.
Yeah.
But you mentioned obviously you cooked with wine a little bit, right? And that's probably what people are more comfortable doing.
Yeah, I mean,
when you hear cooking with beer, I think you think of things like beer can chicken or beer cheese. Or
that's good. I never thought about the beer cheese.
Yeah, beer cheese is something that we've done that before as well. It's or maybe at a marinade or something like that. But what would you say is the big difference?
Well, so like you said, a lot of people when they say they're cooking with alcohol, they're usually cooking with a wine, like a sherry, something like that. So it's dry, and just there to like kind of elevate the dish you're using, usually with the meat. And a lot of people don't think that you can do that with beer. It's lesser alcoholic content. It's more of a powerful flavor and aroma in terms of what you use in a wine, because usually you're using a dry white or even a red sometimes, which are easily masked or by the meat because they're just more enhanced. But beer has its own flavors that can come with it.
Intricacies that oftentimes could probably ruin a dish.
So the thing about beer versus wine is that when you're cooking with a beer is beer has a lot more to bring with it, but it also has a lot more like sugar that could and hop bitterness. So that can create, using the exact same ratios beer to wine, you're going to create something a little bit more bitter because of the amount of hops you're bringing with it. And it can also, I think, alter, depending on how you're cooking, it can alter the process of when the meat, I'm assuming you're using meat, starts to brown and caramelize. So you got to be careful with that. So I did my ossobuco with wine, but I had a friend who you've all heard of already, Daniel Hernandez. I had him cook roast as well.
Oh, nice.
Which is very similar to the ossobuco, still using the same vegetables. And he cooked his with a smoked porter.
Oh, very nice.
And so the smoked porter was, it's called To a Locomotive in Winter. It's by Bell's Brewing in Michigan. And you crack open that bottle, you put your nose up to it. It smells like a fire. It just smells
that's the best.
like the peat. And it was funny.
That's what I love about a good scotch, that just can't fire right in your mouth.
And it was funny. It was like, he was like, oh, I got it on the nose and then I put it in my mouth and I couldn't really get it. And I was like, you've been having too much peat stuff because it's there. I had it on its own afterward. Or actually, I had it on its own before while I was microwaving the leftovers. And then I had it during the meal and it just brought back the flavors in the meat. So what you're doing when you're cooking with alcohol is you're playing with two very important factors. You're playing with the the easy evaporative qualities of alcohol because it evaporates and dissolves a lot quicker, which is going to bring out a lot of the aromas, a lot of the flavors right to your nose. And a lot of tasting is going to be through the olfactory sensors. So there's that. And then also alcohol is kind of like a vehicle for the fat and water-soluble elements in the meat or in the marinade you're using it for. So it's actually going to transfer a lot of the stuff that's surrounding the main dish, the main course, the meat. It's going to incorporate a lot of that, like maybe it's garlic, maybe it's onion. It's going to incorporate that right into the flesh, which is really nice. So it enhances everything else. Even just a small amount is going to bring that out because it just it's like a vehicle to just get it right in there.
Oh yeah, Whenever I cook with wine, it's amazing to me. And I've tried substituting before. I didn't have any, and I was like, well, what can I use to basically do the same thing a wine would do to like a sauce or something? Like it just, I've tried acidity with like lemon juice or even like, beef or chicken stock, vinegar, because that has some similar things, but it just doesn't do it the same way that like an alcohol can do. It's just, there's something about it. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there's a science behind it. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So I was doing a little bit more research because I a lot of people cook with beer. So I was doing some research about beer and people are having a lot of fun cooking with beers. And it's not just, using these dark beers for roasts or something like that. Because that's what Dan used, the porter. But I've heard of people doing like a wheat beer for chicken or like an IPA with fish. That one sounds a little interesting to me.
It does.
And it's just, you again, you're riffing off the qualities in the beer and also the qualities in your main dish and what's enhancing it in terms of spice and other things like that. And but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to develop that menu and a lot of fun to taste it afterwards. So
I bet. I would say if you guys had any special Valentine's Day meals that involved beer, I want to know about those as well. If you cooked, if you went out, whatever that was, even if it was just a beer pairing that you like to have on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Because that's part of cooking with beer as well. I mean, obviously you're not using it in the dish, but like Mike mentioned, the various elements of his dish paired well with certain beers as well. And I think that can be kind of all wrapped up in this discussion about cooking with beer. So let us know what you guys did for Valentine's Day. Obviously, let us know what you had for your Valentine's Day beer.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you have any tips to cook on beer, maybe you have a recipe that your family's been like passed down for like 100 years or something and it involves beer, like that would be awesome. We'll do it. We'll cook it and we'll eat it right here.
Yeah. Oh yeah, on the show. I would love that. So also I wanted to plug a new segment on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
The name is still in the works, but it's basically we want you guys to, now that you have a little experience in how a Cicerone would address a beer, would evaluate a beer, to do your own live tasting and to fresh open a can and experience it live on camera. Send it to us, and you might get on the page. And start using your beer vocabulary. Start using some new words, and realize like it's not easy, but it's a lot of fun to really have to use words, use descriptors to describe your experience, because you realize there's a lot going on. There are a lot of nuances that you just can't describe until you start just practicing.
Yeah,
so,
totally. Like Mike mentioned, just to kind of echo that, like we can only say so much, and it's most of what you guys have to say that is actually kind of bringing new points of view to our perspective. And so send them away and we'll repost them and obviously learn something from them as well. All right, with that, Mike, let's go to the challenge for this week. What do you have on the table?
Yeah, sure. So I've alluded to this before, but we're coming up to the last kind of week where we can start homebrewing for a specific Irish holiday.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And I think you all know what I'm talking about. St. Patrick's Day is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're a home brewer, or if you know a home brewer, I want you guys to start thinking about maybe preparing your own beer for that day. If you never homebrewed before, it's a really easy hobby to get into, and it's a lot of fun. And it's kind of good for you because you save some money making the beer that you're going to be drinking anyways. And you can become a little bit more knowledgeable and particular about the beer you're drinking, which is nice. So right around this time is where we're at, 4 or so weeks before Patrick's?
Roughly.
So if you brew this week and you naturally carb, you'll just make it in time, I think. If you do forced carbonation, which is using CO2 to carbonate your beer, you actually have a couple more weeks ahead of you before you have to. But let us know if you're a home brewer what your recipe would be for this week or for St. Patrick's Day. If you went for the Irish dry stout, or if you went for the Irish red, or something even completely different from that. Let us know what your recipes are, or if you want to keep those notes to yourself, copyright those recipes, that's fine. But just let us know the style.
Good point. Don't tell him because he'll totally take it.
Yeah. Well, I might try to make it if it's good. But let us know. And if you're not a home brewer, I think you guys got the week off, unless you want to give them a challenge.
Well, I was going to say maybe just go get a St. Patrick's Day beer. Find an Irish beer you haven't had before. There's a lot out there. One that we had up at the Guinness Brewery in Baltimore, which I think is only specific to that brewery because you can only get it in Ireland typically. I think it's called Kilkenny. I'm not entirely sure.
Or the
beer is called Kilkenny.
Oh, okay.
I think, and if I'm wrong, I'm really sorry. I'll link to it down below. You can go check it out. But there's so many great Irish beers out there.
Smithwick's,
I mean, it's not just Guinness.
My first beer was an Irish beer. It was the Killian's Red.
Killian's Red Ale is great. So definitely go do that. Maybe that's what I would say.
Okay,
for people like me who don't homebrew.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, on that note, guys, please let us know your thoughts on this episode, about the challenges of last week, and obviously this upcoming week. You can drop a comment below. Please hit that subscribe button for future episodes. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and as always, email us at don'tstopbeerleaving@gmail.com. And we will see you all next week.
Cheers.